Craving the coffee flavor you love, but without the caffeine? Kachava's got you covered with their newest coffee flavor. This all-in-one nutrition shake delivers bold, authentic flavor crafted from premium decaffeinated Brazilian beans. Quality nutrition shouldn't be complicated. Just 2 scoops of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake, and you've got 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, and so much more. Whether you're craving that coffee taste to kickstart your morning ritual, or as a nutrient-packed reward to round out your afternoon, Kachava keeps you fueled and satisfied wherever your day takes you. Plus, it actually tastes delicious. No fillers, no nonsense. Just the good stuff your body craves. And for the times you feel like switching it up, you've got 7 flavors to choose from, all with the highest quality ingredients. Treat yourself to the flavor and nutrition your body craves. Go to kachava.com and use code NEWS. New customers get 15% off their first order. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
Poilievre hits the podcast big leagues as energy prices climb again and the war approaches its 3-week mark. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
All the news you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Nothing's been posted yet, but the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada is about to be introduced to millions of podcast listeners around the world. Pierre Poilievre is going to be on the Joe Rogan Experience, which is routinely one of the most popular podcasts in the world. The typical audience for a Joe Rogan podcast is about 11 million listeners or so. That's per episode. Mr. Poilievre apparently recorded the episode while he was in Austin, Texas, where Rogan's podcast empire originates. He was invited to appear on that podcast during the last election campaign, but his campaign team turned down the offer. And at the time, Rogan and his sidekicks mocked him for that decision.
Offered to have that Pierre guy come on the podcast.
Really?
He didn't do it. Wouldn't do it. Thought it was too problematic. Or whatever. Jordan told me, I forget what he said, but they were telling him not to do it. Like his advisors were telling him not to do it. Hey, dumbass.
Rogan has talked about Poilievre in the past, mostly during the Trudeau years. Rogan did not like Justin Trudeau, but Rogan praised Poilievre when he was interviewing Canadian comedian Tom Green.
I love Canadians. I just hate their government.
Mm-hmm. And
sometimes Pierre, how do you say his last name? Poilievre?
Yeah, well, it's French, so it's well, I don't think he's French, but the name's French. Pierre Poilievre.
Poilievre.
Sort of a weird R, silent R.
Yeah, it's a strange, as you see it written down, it's very difficult to remember how to say it, right?
Yeah.
That guy makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
He's so common sense and just calling out all the nonsense that's been done under this administration. It's just so sad to watch.
On his social media accounts, Poilievre said, quote, fought for Canadian workers and Canadian interests on the world's biggest podcast. Thank you, Joe Rogan, for an amazing conversation. Let's get tariff-free trade. The Joe Rogan Experience is usually released on Spotify at around 1 o'clock Eastern time in about an hour from now. There are rumors, they're just rumors at this point, that Pierre Poilievre might appear on Fox News today because he's in New York City making a speech, and the Fox News studios in New York are close to where he's giving a speech. Turning to the economy, tariffs, along with the much higher energy prices because of the war in the Middle East, are the reasons why the Bank of Canada decided to hold the line on interest rates this week. During a news briefing in Ottawa, the governor of the Bank of Canada, Tiff Macklem, said there's too much uncertainty right now with the economy because of trade and tariffs and because of the war. So it's not the time to be raising or lowering interest rates. He said the central bank has options.
Look, if energy prices stay high and we start to see evidence that it is generalizing and becoming more persistent, we can raise the policy interest rate to cool inflation. On the other hand, if energy prices come back down, we see weakness in the economy, we see more weakness in the economy, we can lower our policy rate to add more support. I think the message is there's a lot of uncertainty there. We'll be following those developments carefully and we'll respond as needed.
Oil prices are up almost 50% in the last month. This Saturday will mark 3 weeks since the war in the Middle East started, and retail gasoline prices are 25 to 30% higher in most Canadian cities. Governor Macklem told reporters yesterday, though, that these higher oil prices aren't all bad for Canada, but he warned the inflation rate will go up from here.
Canada, on the growth side, there's a variety of effects. We're a net exporter of energy. We're a net exporter of fertilizer. Higher prices means more income coming into the country, but for consumers or any business buying those products, those costs are up. They're getting squeezed. So, and then look, on inflation, the impacts in the near term are pretty clear. When we get the March CPI report, it's going to show inflation's higher. The issue for us, though, is not really about the near term. I realize that's going to impact Canadians. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can't fix the war.
As for that war and when it could end, the United States Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth told reporters at the Pentagon today the U.S. military is on plan and over the top.
Well, we wouldn't want to set a definitive time frame on that, but as we've said, we're on plan. So we're looking at those metrics very closely, relaying that to the president and the national security team, but feel confident that again, we're more stand in means we're over the top, even further in, and we have even more of an exact sense of what we're striking and why, and even more dynamically, meaning because the intelligence improves, we're able to more quickly identify targets when let's say they come out of an underground facility where they've been hiding and able to strike it before it strikes or right after it shoots. But we're very much on plan, and that's why I want to speak to the American people here. You hear a lot of noise about widening or new missions or speculation about what we should or should not be doing. This is a clear set of objectives. The president has given us every capability we need to accomplish that. We've got the best in the world in uniform executing it on the ground. They believe in and are invested in this mission, and it will be at the president's choosing, ultimately, where we say, hey, we've achieved what we need to on behalf of the American people to ensure our security.
Iran hit a Saudi oil refinery on the Red Sea. It also hit a pair of Qatari LNG facilities and 2 Kuwaiti oil refineries. Following those attacks, U.S. President Donald Trump warned the United States would, quote, massively blow up the entirety of the world's largest gas field if Iran attacks Qatar again. And Saudi Arabia's foreign minister had harsh words for Iran.
The targeting of Riyadh while a number of diplomats are meeting, I cannot see as coincidental. And I think that's the clearest signal of how Iran feels about diplomacy. It doesn't believe in talking to its neighbors. It tries to pressure its neighbors. And what I can say categorically, that's not going to work.
Back at the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth insisted the war in Iran will not be a forever war like Iraq and Afghanistan, which he blamed today on, quote, foolish politicians. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
He's my friend on the right side of things. Michael Taube is a columnist for The National Post, Loonie Politics, and Troy Media, and he was a speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Welcome back.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing today?
Yeah, we're very good. How are you?
I'm good. Doing well. Looking outside, and the weather's getting better. The snow is disappearing, as I've heard, actually, your producer is getting even less snow, or has even less snow than we do combined. But, spring is around the corner, which is nice to see.
Yeah, well, it's already arrived in Calgary by the sounds of things, like 18 degrees. You got to love those Chinooks that they get out in Calgary, I guess. But we can all be jealous, I suppose, in this part of the country. So, look, I mean, it's a big day for Pierre Poilievre when it comes to political communications, because he is, episode will drop in an hour or so from now. He's going on Joe Rogan's podcast. Well, he's already recorded the session with Joe Rogan, arguably the most popular podcaster in the world. What do you think of that decision?
Well, it's not even arguable. It's based on the numbers. The numbers state so. It is the most widely viewed podcast and one of the most widely viewed media outlets or media organizations, media, platforms in the world. So you can diminish it all you want, which some of the critics of Mr. Poilievre are doing. There's nothing to diminish. This is actually something that can really benefit him. Now, yes, is it going to suddenly change his poll numbers, and is everything going to do a huge flip-flop in Canada? Not necessarily. It'll obviously pique interest. There'll be a lot of media coverage in Canada about it. There already has been. And there will be millions upon millions of people who will be more familiar with Pierre Poilievre than ever before. And what it also gives him a chance to do is a platform to not only introduce himself to Americans and international viewers of Mr. Rogan that don't know him very well. He is able to actually state what he stands for as a Conservative Party leader, how he would be different if he becomes Prime Minister than the current Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and the Liberals. And he also would have the ability to talk about U.S. President Donald Trump, the tariff battle, foreign policy issues, Canada-U.S. relations, I presume, and probably a variety of other things, because some of these interviews can go up to 2.5 to 3 hours. So we'll see.
Yeah, and it's not like Rogan. I mean, some people describe Joe Rogan as a right winger or whatever. I don't necessarily view him that way. He's just kind of a curious guy. He's been, he endorsed Trump over Harris in the last U.S. presidential election, but he's been critical of Trump. He's been critical of the tariffs. He's been critical of this war, for example.
Of course. Yeah. Well, you see, but unfortunately, that's part of the problem. People just obviously have their own perceptions and ideas, and they don't really look into it. Joe Rogan is not a conservative. He's an independent politically, but he's not a conservative. Remember, at one point years ago, this is a man who actually supported Bernie Sanders' campaign when he was running as a Democrat, and Sanders is a socialist. So basically, Rogan just looks at ideas. And yeah, it's true that he obviously favored Trump over Harris in 2024, but lots of people did, including me, because it was just, at the time, it was a better option, and we knew that. He is a curious person. I think you're right. He's very intellectually curious, and he's just interested in ideas. Yes, some of them are controversial. No one's doubting that. No one said that we agree with everything that Joe Rogan stands for. I certainly don't. But there's a lot of, agreement in terms of the issues and ideas that he talks about. And you can agree to disagree on other matters, which is something that, unfortunately, in this day and age, we've really forgotten how to do, Rob. All we do is react, or a lot of people just react, and it's the worst way to handle something, including intellectual discourse, which this is.
Do you think it would have made a difference if he had appeared on that podcast during the last Canadian election campaign? Rogan said he was invited, but his team said no. They didn't want to create controversy, according to Joe Rogan. What did you think of that decision at the time?
It was a tough call. And look, it's hard to gaze into a crystal ball and predict things. I think it would have helped him. I actually disagree with people who say it wouldn't have, because it would have been exposure. And remember, he would have had the platform open. Rogan made the invitation. I've heard the same thing. I've not confirmed it one way or the other, but I believe it was there. And I do believe that the Poilievre team probably thought about it, but opted not to, in what was then a very difficult climate last year, as you're in the middle of an election, and Donald Trump and tariffs was on everybody's minds. It's hard to sort of combat that when it's just a flurry of things coming at you. He chose not to, which is fine. Could it have helped? I think every time you have exposure in legitimate media sources, which includes radio, TV, YouTube, podcasting, and other things, because the world is very big now and there's lots of different social platforms you can use, it helps you. It benefits you, and he should have done it in the end. It doesn't necessarily mean he would have won, but it would have been something that people would have talked about, and if he'd had a couple good lines or quips or other things, could have used that for himself in his own way while he was out campaigning. So sometimes you just take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you. I would have done it myself.
Okay. When we come back, we're going to discuss what Premier Ford said yesterday about a violent home invasion in Vaughan in the GTA. Premier Ford said, I'm glad you shot the guy. Congratulated him. I'm glad you shot the guy. They need to be shot. Should have shot him a few more times. Let's talk about that when we come back. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
With Michael Taube, columnist for the National Post, Loonie Politics, Troy Media, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Let's listen to Premier Ford and his reaction after it hit the news about a violent home invasion in Vaughan. The homeowner shot one of the intruders, wounded one of the intruders. Let's listen here.
As for the person that was defending his family, he was a legal gun owner, it was stored properly. Congratulations. Yeah, I'm glad you shot the guy. Teach us the rest of these robbers, and I encourage everyone out there that's a legal gun owner. Someone's going to come in and try to kill you and kill your family. Remember, it was just last week, Jamie, one guy got shot because he was trying to protect his kids. Well, you know, these guys, they need to be shot, as far as I'm concerned. You're coming through the front door to hurt your family. I'll never forget the one family that the man was protecting his 4-year-old kid and his child, I should say, and there was 3 other children there and his wife, and they assassinated him right in front of his kids. Like, these ruthless, like, they need to rot in jail for the rest of their lives. Congratulations for shooting this guy. Should have shot him a couple more times, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Okay. What do you think, Michael Taube?
It's one of those. Yeah, I'm here. It's. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Well, I mean, the sentiment is obviously correct. I don't dispute that. The problem is the wording. It's the way. Now, look, Doug Ford, the Ontario Premier, is a populist, and populists by nature use language that typically is different than what a lot of us often use. And there are also other types, there are other premiers such as, my friend Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta. She will sometimes use language, not as a populist, but that, is different than the way other people might craft it. And she's a wordsmith like I am. I understand why Mr. Ford said this, and I don't disagree with the sentiment. The problem is, I think, more the end of it than anything else. And sometimes you have to choose your words carefully. To say that, I'm just paraphrasing, I wish he had shot him a couple more times. Again, his base will get it. Lots of Ontarians will agree. And the initial reaction is, oh, yeah, that's the right thing to say. But you still have to have a measured approach. Yes, it's right that you have to defend your family, defend your property and all that, and that, unfortunately, the laws of our land and the laws in Ontario don't necessarily protect you that way, and he's right to point that out. But again, I think that he just should have said that the man was, right to defend his family, right to defend everything that is important to him and cherished to him, then maybe use that example he had and sort of just leave it at that. If that had been the case, Rob, I don't think we'd be talking about quite as much. And then to congratulate him, he did the gentleman did the right thing. I'm not disputing that.
He's not facing any charges, I should say. The homeowner's not facing any charges, I should say. Yeah.
Right. And that would have been fine. And I don't think you and I would be talking about it, or anyone else for that matter.
Yeah. But you think maybe just a few words too much, Mike? Is that it?
Look, I wrote speeches professionally. I write columns professionally. Yes, I think there was just too much in there. Some of it, perfect. It basically meets the sentiment that a lot of people have, including in Ontario, but sometimes just leave it at that. Like when you get a few positive lines in, great. Leave it at that. Let them linger and don't include more.
All right. Okay. He was very clearly not working from a teleprompter there, Michael.
No.
All right. No. Okay. Interesting. Thank you. And to be talking about that on Talkback later with our listeners. Wonder what they have to say about it. We'll speak to you next week, Michael. Thank you so much. Michael Taube. Columnist and speechwriter, wordsmith. And I'm Rob Snow. Our Newsday panel is coming up. Focus Nova Scotia. Lots to talk about there. Premier Houston's declining popularity being one of them.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Time for our Thursday Newsday panel. That means it's time for Focus Nova Scotia. And joining us once more, Matt Whynot, former NDP MLA, political commentator. Matt Whynot, welcome back. Good to hear from you.
How are you?
Yeah, very good. How are you?
Not too bad.
That's good. Windy day in Halifax today. I was looking at your weather, like +1, but very windy. And
but all of our
Lisa,
snow's gone, so that's good.
Well, that's good. That's good. I'll send you some if you want some. Lots to spare. Lisa Blackburn is here, former Halifax City Councillor, NDP candidate. Welcome back to you as well.
Hey, good day. Good day. Great to be here. Thank you.
So let's start by talking about the Premier and his approval ratings. So every so often, the Angus Reid Institute will release a survey, and it did that this week. These are the most popular premiers in the country, and these are the least popular premiers in the country. At the one end, you have Wab Kinew, the NDP Premier of Manitoba. The NDP Premier of Manitoba. He's the most popular Premier in the country. And at the other end, you have Francois Legault, the Premier of Quebec, and he's not running for re-election in the Quebec provincial. He's at the other end. Premier Houston is kind of closer to the bottom than he is at the top, but his approval ratings are down 11 points compared to the previous survey, 39%. So in other words, more than 6 out of 10 Nova Scotians don't approve of the job he's doing, and he registered the biggest decline among all of the premiers in approval. I'm wondering, Lisa, is this all because of the budget fiasco, or what do you think? Is there more to it than just the budget?
Yeah, I think there is more to it than that. This isn't just about one bad budget. I think what Nova Scotians are seeing now is a pattern that's starting to erode trust. I mean, the budget indeed was the trigger, but I wouldn't say it was the root cause. The proposed cuts to disability supports, culture, violence prevention programs, they felt targeted and almost unnecessary given the overall spending levels. So, the reversal that Tim Houston provided, we got it wrong, I think it might have helped in the short term, but in the long run, all it does is reinforce the perception of instability, I think.
Matt, what do you think? Why are Nova Scotians seemingly souring on a premier that they elected not even 2 years ago?
Well, listen, I think certainly I'll add to what Lisa was saying. Like, I think there is a pattern here for this premier, and the pattern is they often, over a series of legislative sessions, have brought forward ideas or pieces of legislation where it gets folks sort of questioning whether or not this is what they're doing is a good idea. They get backlash and they go, "Oh, I'm sorry." Hold his hand over his heart and say, "I'm sorry." Where this is probably the 5th or 6th time where he has done this, and it started. I think people are starting to go, "Well, what is it? Do you know what you're doing in the governance of our province or not?" And so I'll give you an example. Last legislative session last year, they wanted to take away the fact that the Auditor General was an officer of the House of Assembly, which completely erodes the independence of that office and just allows the Premier to fire or hire whoever he or she wants. Bad idea. And so, we saw thousands of Nova Scotians take to the streets twice, not just once, but twice in the last 2 weeks. And I think that certainly the pressure that these folks have put on to these to the government, the current government, has shown. And I think that Nova Scotians should be proud. But the problem is we can't let up, right? Folks have to continue to push to ensure that. The reality is that yes, they've reversed some cuts. The problem is they can't even tell us what cuts they haven't reversed, and there were cuts that weren't on the original list that now are that now have come to light. So it's kind of like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and the Premier wants to get out of that legislature as quick as possible.
So Lisa, sorry, Matt. Sorry to jump in there. This was going to be my next question. This upset over the budget and the cuts, and then the mea culpa about the cuts. Okay, we won't go all the way with the cuts. We'll only go maybe halfway with the cuts, but there's still going to be cuts. I'm just wondering if has the anger subsided? Has it abated at all? What's your sense of it, Lisa?
I don't think so. There's another protest that's scheduled for next Friday. And this one apparently is going to be an amalgamation of all of the groups that have protested so far. Matt certainly touched on it, but this isn't a budget problem for Houston. This is a whiplash problem because the government has developed a reputation for big announcements, then strong pushback, and then sudden reversals. And that really creates a sense that decisions aren't being fully thought through. MLAs and others, I think, are fatigued with the centralized decision making. With many, MLAs and stakeholders often feeling consulted after the fact and not before.
Okay, let's stop here. When we come back, I want to talk about safety for politicians. These are disturbing stories that are emerging from Nova Scotia. You have one who was hacked and blackmailed. A man showed up at her house, had to be arrested for trespassing. I want to discuss this with the two of you when we return. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
At Focus Nova Scotia with Matt Whynot, former NDP MLA, and Lisa Blackburn, former Halifax City Councillor and NDP candidate. So you want to be a politician, do you? Well, I don't know who would want to be a politician in Nova Scotia when I read some of these stories. You have one MLA, Rick Burns, says hackers released personal images of him and his wife after he refused to provide payment in a blackmail scheme. Wow. And this comes not long after another MLA, Kim Maslin, said she no longer feels safe on the job after a couple of incidents, including one where a man showed up at her house at midnight. My goodness. That man was arrested for trespassing. What do you think should happen here? Does security need to be reviewed, improved, enhanced for politicians in Nova Scotia? Lisa, what do you think?
I think security needs modernization, but balance is important. I mean, I think ultimately this is about the health of democracy, not just the safety of politicians. My 8 years on city council, I certainly saw the development or the erosion, I guess, of just norms. What used to be angry emails is now harassment, intimidation, confrontation in the real world. So, it's scary when you hear about the Rick Burns and Kim Maslin cases, and this definitely has an impact on who is going to want to run for office, as you sort of indicated off the top. I think women in particular, people who don't have the resources or that can shell out for security. If people feel unsafe, good candidates simply aren't going to run.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm already successful in another career, why would I leave that career and subject me and my family to this sort of thing? That's something that would come up for me. Matt, why not? Sorry, I just want to hear from Matt here first, if you don't mind, Lisa. Yeah, Matt, what do you think?
Listen, I remember the day, so I was a legislative page back in 2002, 2001, when a man came into Province House with a machete. That was the day when we didn't have metal detectors at Province House. And when metal detectors were put in, people were gobsmacked, right? No matter who you are, or no matter what workplace you should be, you should feel as safe as possible. The reality is the public is feeling there's a lot of angst. People are afraid. People's money isn't going as far as it should be going, and so I'm certainly condemning the fact that these things are happening. At the same time, because of the fear, people don't know what else to do. And so there's and I don't know the all the details and all of this, but I will also note that the response, I saw the story yesterday about the MLA, the Rick Burns, automatic response from the Premier in a statement. I find it very fascinating that there was no response and crickets from the Premier's office on Kim Maslin. Not a peep. So how they respond is super important, and it needs to ensure that everyone's on the same page, that no matter who you are, again, doesn't matter if you're a politician. Like, my kids play basketball. Refs are under attack all the time, verbally. From spectators. So, no matter who you are, you should feel safe in the workplace, healthcare worker,
I just want both of your take on something else here, because a few weeks ago, it was very hot, very tense about the budget, the Nova Scotia budget at the time. And the Speaker of the legislature, Speaker Barkhouse, said they temporarily restricted access to the legislature. Okay. And that didn't go over well with some people, but they said it was to ensure the safety of MLAs. Lisa, what do you think about a decision like that? Because critics would say, well, that's anti-democratic, for example. What do you think?
Well, provinces can't become a fortress. That's non-negotiable, because public access is part of democracy. But I think reasonable steps, and that's what I meant when I said that, can't be a fortress and just lock things down. I mean, we need clear protocols for threats and harassment. There's got to be enhanced safety planning for the constituency office and even homes of MLAs. But, I think the other piece of it, too, is that we cannot normalize intimidation as just politics. Because if we do that, we end up with a democracy with fewer and fewer people who are willing to participate in. We've got to be very clear, all parties do, that disagreement is healthy, intimidation is not, and harassment is not part of the job.
Yep, amen. What do you think about limiting access to the legislature, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I certainly don't think it's healthy. We have to ensure. There's only one entrance in for the public in that building, and it goes through a metal detector. So we have to ensure that all people are safe. But at the same time, if we lock it down like Fort Knox, then it doesn't create this level of democracy that we all should aspire to have and to be. I would be interested to know whether or not this was just an off the cuff response from the Speaker, or whether or not the Sergeant at Arms and other law enforcement were actually consulted on this.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, when we come back, who's up for paying a cover charge to enter New Brunswick from Nova Scotia? Anybody want to pay the cover charge? The New Brunswick government is going to impose a toll on out-of-province drivers from Nova Scotia entering into New Brunswick. I would like our panelists' take on that when we return. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
It's Focus Nova Scotia with Matt Whynot, former NDP MLA political commentator, and Lisa Blackburn, former Halifax City Councillor, NDP candidate. And if they want to visit New Brunswick, they'll have to pay the cover charge to get into the province, I'm afraid. New Brunswick, just like most provincial governments, are struggling with huge deficits. So to increase revenue, which the provincial government in New Brunswick insists will only go to road maintenance, they are going to charge a toll at the New Brunswick-Nova Scotia border. Like Amherst is there and Sackville, New Brunswick is there. I remember there used to be the big giant towers for Radio Canada International, but they're long gone now. Only for out-of-province drivers. New Brunswickers will get a break on the toll. They won't have to pay it, but you too would have to pay it if you go visit New Brunswick. Some people are not happy. It's a very busy place. A lot of cross-border traffic there. Lisa, what do you think about it? What do you think about this decision from the New Brunswick government?
Well, I think New Brunswick is getting the last laugh, because the joke around these parts for many years was that New Brunswick was the drive-through province. And now they have determined and found a way to monetize that. Yeah, I mean, it might make political sense locally, economically, regionally. It is a bit risky. It might look like easy money turning provincial borders into toll booths, but that's not the direction that most Canadians want to go. But I mean, Nova Scotia really can't complain. We've got the same deal going on the 104 toll highway. If you have
you have the Cobequid Pass, right? You have the
Cobequid, yeah, exactly. The Cobequid Pass. If you've got a Nova Scotia license plate, you sail on through. Anything else, you've got to stop and pay a toll. So,
I know.
it does raise some money, but at what cost to regional goodwill and business relationships?
Okay. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think, the same thing as Lisa as far as we have them for New Brunswickers coming into Nova Scotia, going through Cobequid Pass. The only thing that I would say is that maybe not necessarily a well thought out plan when it comes to, if you look at the little hospital that's in Sackville, New Brunswick, a lot of those folks, even at the Moncton Hospital, and vice versa, whether you're, if you're farther along in Nova Scotia, there's healthcare workers that work on both sides of the border. And if you're a Nova Scotian, you're going to be paying twice going back and forth to and from work. I would say if you want to attract healthcare workers and other workers into your province, it's probably not the right way to do it, or maybe it's not at Allac. Maybe it's farther down. But I mean, they've made a choice, especially around.
Well, you raise a good point, Matt. Like, what if I'm from, what if I live in Amherst and I go to Mount Allison University and I'm a student and I'm there all week, right? They'll have to come up with exemptions or discounts or something like that. You would think.
Or something like that, or maybe they'll buy their cars in New Brunswick and register their car and have a New Brunswick license plate and live in Nova Scotia.
I don't know. Okay, it's not coming in right away. Not for a few more years. They say it'll raise between $10 and $11 million a year. Only on roads.
Is it coming in on the other side though? Is it coming on the Quebec side?
No, I haven't seen anything to that effect.
Yeah.
Don't give them any ideas, please.
Yeah.
Don't give them any.
Seriously.
Right. I do that drive quite frequently, so paying enough tolls as it is. It's the big one, of course, is to get off the island on the Confederation Bridge that I really don't
there
like.
It is. That's the other
example. Okay. Thank you to both of you. Great to hear from you today. Bye-bye.
All the best.
Yeah. Matt Whynot, political commentator, former NDP MLA, and former Halifax City Councillor and NDP candidate Lisa Blackburn. Talkback, a couple of hot stories we need to run by you and get your take on today on Talkback. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today, 2 news stories in the news cycle we'd like your take on. One deals with provocative remarks from the Premier of Ontario about home invasions and self-defense laws. And the other is about what's going on in Alberta with MAID and medical assistance in dying. Big changes coming. Both in the news. We want your take on them. First to Ontario. In what has become an all too familiar scene, there was a home invasion. It happened in Vaughan, just north of Toronto. Some of it was captured on a home security system. Let's listen to a little bit of that, please.
Police.
So there are 3 men. They're all wearing masks and hoodies. And one of them can clearly be seen in the security video holding a handgun. And you hear them, they're pounding on the door, break in. And it sounds like you hear someone say, police, police. And the alarm goes off. You see a pickup truck pull up outside the home. Looks like a Dodge Ram. And then in the next frame, you see the suspects are fleeing from the house. They get into the truck and it speeds away. We know now that the homeowner, legal gun owner, shot one of the suspects. He was wounded. The other guys, they dropped him off at a local hospital. The York Regional Police say the homeowner's not facing any charges. All of it happened just after midnight early Tuesday morning, so just a couple of days ago. The homeowner is described as a middle-aged man, lives in the house with an elderly woman. They weren't hurt. The wounded would-be robber is 24 years old, no fixed address, been in trouble before, charged with robbery with a firearm, disguised with intent, breach of probation, was on an outstanding probation order for an unrelated offense at the time. In other words, known to police, a frequent flyer, you could say. 3 other suspects still at large. So that's some of the background. Now, yesterday, during an event in Perth, Wellington, which is southwestern Ontario, not far from Stratford, the Ontario Premier, Doug Ford, had a few things to say about this. Let's listen to what he said.
As for the person that was defending his family, he was a legal gun owner, was stored properly, congratulations. Yeah, I'm glad you shot the guy. Teach us the rest of these robbers, and I encourage everyone out there that's a legal gun owner. Someone's going to come in and try to kill you and kill your family. Remember, it was just last week, Jamie, one guy got shot because he was trying to protect his kids. Well, you know, these guys, they need to be shot, as far as I'm concerned. You're coming through the front door to hurt your family. I'll never forget the one family that the man was protecting his 4-year-old kid and his child, I should say, and there was 3 other children there and his wife, and they assassinated him right in front of his kids. Like, these ruthless, like, they need to rot in jail for the rest of their lives. Congratulations for shooting this guy. Should have shot him a couple more times as far as I'm concerned.
Should have shot him a couple of more times as far as I'm concerned. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Doug Ford congratulating, praising a man who shot someone, who broke into his house, and saying, should have shot him a few more times. Should have shot him a few more times as far as I'm concerned. Is that something the Premier should be saying? Is that responsible, or is it reckless? You know, in the past, Premier Ford has called for things like stand your ground laws, castle laws, the idea your home is your castle, stand your ground. What do you think of Premier Ford his remarks? His critics might say he's encouraging vigilantism. He's telling people it's okay if they take justice into their own hands. I'd like to know what you think. At 1-833-668-2577. That's one story that's in the news. The other is Danielle Smith, the Alberta Premier, and her big announcement about changes to MAID, medical assistance in dying. It's going to be restricted in that province. Big changes are on the way. And the only people in Alberta who would be allowed to access MAID would be the terminally ill. People who are likely to die within 12 months. So if someone has an illness, but their death is not reasonably foreseeable within the next 12 months, they wouldn't qualify for MAID in Alberta. Let's listen to what the Premier said about this.
Mental health and wellness are things many people manage throughout their entire lives, and periods of severe illness can feel dark, hopeless, and overwhelming. But with the right support, many people regain stability and go on to live full and meaningful lives. MAID should not become a permanent response to a moment of crisis or despair that can change with care and time. So our government is acting now before the federal government weakens the guardrails any further. We believe MAID must be a compassionate option reserved only for those who will not recover from terminal illness. That's why, as part of our spring legislative session, we'll be introducing the Safeguards for Last Resort Termination of Life Act. If passed, it will make sure that here in Alberta, medical assistance in dying has robust and appropriate safeguards in place. It will limit MAID eligibility to circumstances where natural death is reasonably foreseeable and recovery is not.
So when, and it's a matter of when this bill passes into law, it would essentially end almost all what are known as Track 2 cases for MAID in Alberta. There are a bunch of other changes coming to MAID rules in Alberta as well, but that's the big one. That's the big one. And we want to know what you think about it. That only people in Alberta who would be able to access MAID would be people with a terminal illness who are likely to die within a year. What do you think about that? Too restrictive? Or is that how it should be? Because that's how the original MAID law was written a decade ago. Those are two hot stories right now, part of the news cycle of the nation. We want your take on one of them, both of them. Phone number to call, 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. It's the Thursday Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What's your take on a couple of news stories? Ontario Premier Doug Ford congratulated a homeowner who shot a would-be home invader. Ford said the homeowner should have shot him a few more times. What do you think of that remark? His critics are going to say that's reckless, Mr. Premier. Shouldn't be saying things like that. Ontario Premier Danielle Smith will be restricting access to MAID in Alberta under a new bill. Only people who are terminally ill and likely to die within 12 months. Too restrictive? Or the way it should be? 1-833-668-2577. Have your say on one or the other. Jim is in Kitchener today. Hello, Jim. You're up first. Hi, Jim.
Hi.
Hi, Jim.
I'm just come from a slightly different perspective in that I've been shot at twice. Had a gun held to my head once.
My gosh.
And when I was shot at, I was down in Texas. And the only rule there is that you cannot shoot someone in the back, because if you're shooting in the back, they are retreating and you have to leave them alone. Otherwise, it's fair game. I have never owned a gun, but I gotta say, I wish to heck I did. And as far as shooting multiple times, a single bullet does not necessarily stop someone. In fact,
fair enough, but should the premier be encouraging that? Is the question. Should have shot him a few more times.
I think he has. He's trying to do his best. Getting shot with a gun does not necessarily stop you. You still have the ability to respond further. And so if you shoot them once, you may as well get a couple more in.
All right, thank you. Sounds like you're right on. You're right on the same line of thinking as the premier. I'm just wondering if maybe he said a few more words than he should have. Okay, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I thank you for your call. I'm not some kind of thug hugger. I'm just asking, did he go too far when he said you should have shot him a few more times? Teach him a lesson. Vicky is in Halifax. Hello, Vicky. Thanks for calling, Vicky.
Hi, how are you?
Very good, Vicky. Yeah, good, Vicky. Thank you.
I think he's playing, big, tough Texas daddy. Rob is, Doug is, I mean.
Yeah.
But I think, I agree with him, because let's put the fear of God into anyone who comes into my house, because I support they're trying to get pepper spray advanced. I just bought some Cougar dog spray, and if anybody comes near me and is intimidating, I will not hesitate to use it, even though it's illegal in the province of Nova Scotia.
Yeah, they're trying to change that in Ontario and allow people to carry pepper spray. It has its critics as well. But you don't think he went too far? Encouraging, he's going to be accused. You're encouraging vigilantism. You're going to confuse people who may not be familiar with the particulars of the law. All of these things,
Well, Well, I think you got to go a little too far to get these people to back off. I mean, why are they entering homes in the first place? They're not there for good reason.
No, they're not there to teach Sunday school. That's for sure. And you can see in the video, one of them has got a gun. You can see it. And you hear in the video, can you play the video again? This is from City News, our colleagues from City News in Toronto. You hear how they're banging on the door? Play that again, Curtis. You hear how they're banging on the door? Imagine it's 12:30 at night. Please. You know, they're banging down the door 12:30 at night. It's crazy. All right. Yeah, but you think the Premier's right on. Put the fear of God into them. Fair enough. All right. Thank you. Let's go to Ken is in Cochrane. Up next, Ken in Cochrane. Hi, Ken.
Morning, Rob.
Yeah,
Rob,
good to hear from you.
I have a slightly different perspective. Well, first of all, I'm in 100% agreement with the Premier. I think, he's only saying what I think most people are thinking. I come at this from a slightly different perspective, having 25 years of police experience. And I can tell you that if we did this, a lot more people who were breaking into homes would be thinking twice about breaking into the home, wondering whether or not there was somebody on the other side of the door with a firearm that was going to potentially be their last day. But I heard an accent when I listened to the tape that you played, and I'd be very curious to know. One of my good friends in Calgary Police Service was shot and killed by someone from Jamaica. Shouldn't have been in the country, and I would be wondering whether or not this person that was arrested for this particular incident was somebody who was an illegal person in our country or a permanent resident in our country. And when he did this particular offense, or when he did the other offense that you had mentioned, or any other offense.
Right. Yeah. Now look, when you watch the video, you can watch the video at City News Toronto on their website. You can go watch it yourself. It's not clear that voice and who is saying that, if that's the homeowner, if that's one of the perpetrators. So I don't know whose voice that is. You hear a voice, it sounds like they're saying police. I'm not sure. Thank you, though. Be right back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford congratulating a homeowner who shot a would-be robber. Ford said, should have shot him a few more times. What do you think of that? That's a popular one today. And if you have anything to say about Premier Danielle Smith, will be restricting MAID in Alberta under a new law to people who are only terminally ill and likely to die within 12 months. That is quite a change from what it is in the rest of the country. Ron in Nova Scotia. Hello, Ron. Thanks for calling, Ron.
Hey, Rob. How you doing? Long time fan. Enjoy your show. It's usually
thank you.
Quite a good conversation. So,
thank you,
if
Ron.
I may, I'll give a quick opinion on both.
Sure.
I think, like most Canadians, we're really sick and tired of the criminals over the last decade or more being in a revolving door situation, because many of these guys that are doing the home invasions, it's not their first time. Violent crime, there should be no place for that in our society, and our unwillingness to lock these people up for any length of time or give them any real form of discipline when they hold a weapon on somebody or threaten somebody else's lives, there's no repercussions to it at all. I mean, we all read newspapers and unfortunately probably quite well aware of what's going on. Should Rob have, or Doug, sorry, should Doug have said it the way he did? Yes, because I think it's time that the politicians start understanding the concern of homeowners that are good people who are legal gun owners. We're way less likely to commit a crime of any form because we are concerned about having guns taken from us for any kind of offhanded threat or for no reason at all. I think that every Canadian should have the right to defend themselves. Deadly force inside your own home, or if you're being carjacked, I certainly would like to see people be allowed to have pepper spray for that instance. But certainly, no, Mr. Ford, although I don't generally agree with everything he says, I have no issues with how he spoke.
All right. You think you struck a chord with that one?
Yes. And I think it's time that some politicians need to understand that we are we're lacking doctors, we're lacking housing, we're lacking the ability to buy food. And that's going to funnel down and create more crime, period. I mean, if we look at history, that's what happens when things get economically tight. That's why when gas goes up, people do the pump and run. They pump gas and they run because they can't afford the gas anymore. So
sure.
Everything's sort of connected there.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you.
I'll only speak to this with the MAID thing.
Sure.
If you are sound mind, and I had experience with this, unfortunately, over the last 2 years, I lost a couple of people I loved.
Okay.
But as long as you're of sound mind, if you want to end your life and your prefrontal cortex has fully developed and you're an adult and you want to end your life and it's not just a momentary thing,
you should be allowed.
That's your right to do that.
It's your right. Okay, well, it won't be. Not in Daniel Smith's Alberta, it won't be. Not under the new law. Thank you. Sorry, we have to run. Be right back.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We are discussing some stories in the news cycle today, such as Ontario Premier Doug Ford congratulating a homeowner who shot a would-be home invader, a robber, a burglar, and said should have shot him a few more times. Really want to know what you think about that. There's a lot of opinion on that. He also had a few choice words for the federal Liberals as well. Let's listen to that.
And everyone should be out there, legal gun owners. And by the way, the federal government, they're spending so much time on going after legal, law-abiding gun owners that safely store their guns, safely store their ammunition, their hunters or their sport shooters. I have an idea. Rather than wasting hundreds of millions of dollars going after legal gun owners, why don't you spend that hundreds of millions of dollars going after the bad guys? You know, they always want to protect the bad guys. The judges always want to protect the Charter of Rights. How about the Charter of Rights of the people to keep them safe? Rather than always protecting these criminals. I'm just sick and tired of it, and I can tell you folks, I talk to a lot of people. I get 1,000 calls, I'm not exaggerating, 1,000 calls and messages a day. People are done with this. They're done with all these crazy protesters and nasty people and breaking into homes and stealing cars. We all grew up here. Did we experience this 10 years ago? No, we never experienced this. People in Toronto never experienced this. I'm guessing about 5 years ago, people just were so brazen because we have some great judges, but we have some really weak-kneed judges letting these criminals out on bail, not once, not twice, 4 or 5 times, just to go, okay, Johnny, go out and break into the next house. They're violent criminals, and we're going to hold them to account. And thank you for getting me going, Jamie, because, but it's the truth. What I'm saying, a vast majority of the people are thinking in the province. I can assure you of that.
All right. Well, let's find out. Is he right? Ed is in Halifax. Hello, Ed. Thanks for calling, Ed.
Hello, Rob.
Hi, Ed.
Thank you for your show. I enjoy listening to it, and I'm very impressed with the balanced coverage that you give to both sides of the topics that you discuss.
Okay.
The main thing that I wanted to say was I 100% agree with Danielle Smith. I think it's a very reasonable suggestion and position for somebody in her as a premier to say, and lead people, because it's a very slippery slope, this MAID. I personally, I'm almost 70, and I experienced a medical misdiagnosis for a number of years and was actually told to put my affairs in order. And if I hadn't left Halifax and gone to Toronto to get a second opinion, probably might not be here. But no hard feelings towards anybody. Everybody was, I have no hard feelings towards people, and I got through it. But I had a very hard time for a few years, and jumping off the bridge crossed my mind, and I may have done it if I hadn't had young children at the time. So I've got some strong feelings about it. And the other point that I want to make just quickly is a lot of the time the people that are depressed and have problems and have a friend of ours, I knew the guy, and he had multiple sclerosis and he had polio when he was a kid, and he was a hard-working guy and wanted to provide for his family and stuff. And as he got older, he couldn't work, and he didn't really have any, pension from working, and he just didn't have any money, and
yes.
He was depressed, and he was in pain, and I think if he had even a couple, they were, it was during pandemic, and they their apartment got reno-evicted, and so they had a hard time finding space, and he was in a wheelchair at that point,
Sure.
And he was a proud guy, and he chose MAID, and it was mostly because of money.
Mostly
and
because of money, yeah. Okay. Right.
And they can say, we're depressed, but a lot of the time it's money. And I think it's absolutely wrong for people to choose MAID when the underlying thing is really money.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Social circumstance, the social safety net. Ed, yeah, interesting points. I mean, if this bill passes into law, as I said, track 2 for MAID is pretty much over in Alberta. There are lots of other ones there. For example, if your only condition is mental illness, you won't be allowed to access MAID in Alberta. Doctors, banned for bringing up MAID unless the patient brings it up first. That's another one. Advance requests, which are very popular in Quebec right now, and only Quebec where it's allowed, won't be allowed in Alberta. A pre-plan for MAID. Let's go to another call. Matthew in Halifax. Matthew.
Hi there.
Hi, Matthew.
I think regarding Premier Ford, his comments and stuff, I think they're extremely unprofessional for a premier to be saying stuff like that.
Okay. You're in the minority opinion on that one. Why do you feel that way?
It's just, how he said it, I feel like just makes people think, oh, okay, I could shoot anybody who comes into my house no matter what. No, there has to be, these people who broke into this guy's house, yes, they had a gun. Therefore, they had the capability. They probably had the intent, and they had the proximity. Buddy, he shot the guys a couple of times, and they ran off. If he kept shooting, that's murder. Plain and simple, right? Like, it's
hard to say.
The moment it stops being self-defense, it's murder. Like, I'm a gun owner myself. I'm a member of the armed forces. You were taught you defend yourself. If they have the proximity, the intent, and the capabilities, then yes, you use the minimum amount of force to de-escalate the situation.
Right.
If he shot the guy 2 times, that de-escalated the situation enough. There you go. But if he continued to shoot, then that's murder. If he shot to kill him. If, after the 2 shots, if it took more than 2 shots and it ended up being a fatal shot, that's that could be in the realm of self-defense.
So you think it's unprofessional? He is encouraged, just because we have to run here, you think he's encouraging people to use disproportionate force? Yes?
Absolutely. I think how
Absolutely.
he says it,
Okay.
the wording is just horrible for a premier to say it like that.
Horrible. Okay. As I said, that's the minority view on this. But we welcome that as well. Absolutely. Have your say. Talk back today. It's a hot one today. 1-833-668-2577 is the call-in line. You want to grab one and join the discussion on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
To Ontario Premier Doug Ford congratulating a homeowner who shot a home intruder, saying he should have shot him a few more times. What do you think about a remark like that from a premier? Is that reckless, or are you okay with it? And Alberta Premier Danielle Smith making a big move on MAID access in Alberta, limiting it to people who are essentially terminally ill and likely to die within a year. Too restrictive for the way it should be? Just what do you think? Shauna up next in Calgary. First-time caller. Thanks for calling, Shauna.
Hi, thanks for having me. I just wanted to reiterate what your previous caller, Ed, said earlier. He said he thanked you for allowing us a chance to voice our opinions, all sides, and I just want to say thanks for giving us that opportunity.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for calling.
Thank you. I'm calling to voice my opinion, and I 100% agree with Premier Ford that our homes should be our sacred, our safe domains, and we have absolute dominion over them. Someone comes in and breaks into my home, I think there should be absolutely no holds barred as to how I defend my home, my family members, my space, my valuables, my life. A previous caller of yours, an RCMP officer, said, we should be using minimal force. I think when you're in the midst of defending yourself, your home, your family members, your children potentially, your elderly, I don't think it enters into your conscience that, maybe I should just
probably not. Probably not at 12:30 in the morning on a Monday night, Tuesday morning. Somebody's banging on your door like that, right? Yeah.
That's right. So is Premier Ford encouraging us towards vigilantism? No. He is encouraging us to defend our homes and to send the message to would-be burglars to back off. But if we let them know, minimum defense is going to be used, minimum force rather is going to be used. What message does that send? Go ahead, break in. You might just get your little ear.
I do wonder how a remark like that from Premier Ford would say, go over with the police, or like a chief of police, because the police would say, normally, I think they would say, we don't recommend you do that. Empty your gun into someone who's breaking into your house. They probably advise you, get you and your family somewhere safe and call us, and we'll take care of it.
But how do you do that? How do you logically do that when you're in the midst of it? You're not trained as an RCMP officer. I mean, we're all lay people defending our homes, so to speak. I mean, how are you going to know? Emotion gets in, your adrenaline gets. How do you know? You're not professionally trained to use minimal force. So I don't think that is a concept that can actually, be.
Fair enough. I appreciate you calling today and being a first-time caller. Call us again sometime. Glenn up next. Hannah, Alberta. Glenn. Hello, Glenn.
Hello. I'm talking about Ford as well.
Go ahead.
He said things that even I agree with, but the way he said it, he actually broke the law. If he had said he should have shot all three of them, there's nothing wrong with that. But by saying he should have shot him a couple more times, that's counseling murder.
Okay, well, I don't know. Should we call the cops on him? What do you want us to do about that?
If the prosecutor wants to, they can prosecute him because he said that publicly.
Okay.
But I don't.
Well, given that you think he's counseling murder, then do you agree or disagree with what he said?
I agree with what he intended to say.
You agree with what he intended to say. Okay, but you think he went too far? You think he went too far?
He said it wrong.
He said it wrong. Should have shot him a few more times.
Shot the one person more times.
Should have shot him a few more times. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Should have shot him a few more times. And he says everybody agrees with me. The vast majority of people agree with me. Should have shot him a few more times. All right. Thank you. I don't know if he broke the law. That's your interpretation. That's an interesting observation, though. Okay, 1-833-668-2577. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines available there. The wait won't be long at all. We'd love to hear from you. 2 hot news stories today. Raise a whole bunch of issues. You can have your say on them. That's why we do the show. It's called Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So the phone lines are jammed right now. If we don't fit you in this hour, remember, full hour just ahead, hour number 2 of Talkback right after the latest breaking news. But let's get right back to it. Sundry, Jocelyn on the line on Talkback. Hello, Jocelyn.
Hi, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Jocelyn.
Hi.
What do you want to talk about?
I just want to say that, in my opinion, Doug Ford is a bombastic windbag. And fortunately, this time, he hasn't done anything that requires Mark Carney to apologize for him. So he's on his own. Home invasion is not okay. We all know that. And I don't think that was your question today. It was whether the Premier's conduct was unbecoming. And yes, definitely.
Well, I'm asking if it's reckless. Is it even reckless?
Of course. It's sheer stupidity, and it's not the first time he's done it. And his brother had the same track record. But clearly there are other things that people see in him that have him voted in again and again. I have also heard him apologize, and that's to his credit for certain, because that's a hard thing for politicians, many politicians, to do. Unfortunately, Carney has 2 rogue premiers to deal with, and he handles it very well. The other, of course, is in Alberta. We are on our left ear here in Alberta, and Premier Smith operates, her favorite medium is chaos, and that is exactly what she's doing. She's now using MAID as though the federal government were promoting murder. And, there is...
Well, I wouldn't suggest that. I do think, and she's certainly not alone in thinking this, that she believes the MAID regulations have become far too permissive and need to be reined in.
Danielle despises anything federal. She is against anything that is federal. She wanted to get rid of the Canada Pension Plan. Federal, can't have that. Hates the RCMP. She is against anything federal, and she has proven that. And as far as MAID goes, simply because it's federal, MAID covers all of the things already that she is talking about. This is not done lightly. I know of a person who did go through MAID, and it was the kindest thing to do. It was the best thing to do. The person was going to live for a longer time. It was intolerable, and she felt there was no hope. It could have gone on for a long time, and it was terrible for her family. It was a burden, and this was a kind way to end her choice, and they were with her, and it was all right. You can't make decisions like this. Being alive and living your life are very different things, and someone else can't decide that. And simply because this is something that is federal, it's something that Danielle is against, and that's wrong.
Okay.
We're kinder to our pets.
All right, Jocelyn. Thank you. Thank you. I have to wrap up our conversation there. If you're on the line, just hang on the line. We'll bring everyone up to date on the latest breaking news. It's been a very busy news day so far. And then we'll be right back to your phone calls here on Talkback with hour number 2 just ahead. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. We have been discussing 2 news stories that are in our news cycle. Ontario Premier Doug Ford congratulating a homeowner who shot a would-be home intruder. And Doug Ford said he should have shot him a few times. Should have shot him a few more times. What do you think of a remark like that from a premier in this country? Should have shot him a few more times, he said. And Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, her government moving to restrict access to MAID in Alberta to only people who are terminally ill and likely to die within 12 months. Major reforms announced to the MAID regime in that province, but are they too restrictive? Or do you think that's the way it should be? It's largely the way the original MAID law was written a decade ago. Let's get back to our phone calls. Arlene in Claresholm, Alberta. Arlene, you're up next on Talkback. Welcome to it.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. What do you want to talk about?
I just wanted to make a comment about what Doug Ford said, and I don't agree with what he said. I think it is reckless, and I don't think somebody, as a premier, should be saying something like that. You may be thinking it, but you shouldn't be saying that.
Why do you feel that way?
I think that a premier should be respected, and things that he says should be monitored more closely. And I know you may be feeling that way, but you shouldn't say that.
Okay, so you think it was irresponsible?
Yes.
Yeah. It could be encouraging people to say, go take justice into their own hands, for example?
Yes, I feel that way.
Yes?
Yes.
That's how you feel. Okay. All right. Arlene, thank you for your call. Let's move along to Gordon, calling from east of Calgary today. Hello, Gordon. Hi, Gordon.
How you doing, young feller?
Yeah. Hi there, Gordon. Good to hear from you. Your opinion, please.
I'm with Rob Ford. Maybe he shouldn't have said it publicly, but what he may be thinking
Doug Ford.
privately. Years ago, a friend of mine's house was broke into. The Mounties came to explain, go through it, investigate it. And the Mountie one time told me, he says, now look, if you ever catch an intruder in your house, you fire 3 shots. The first one, shoot to kill. The second one, shoot in the leg. And the third one through the roof of your house. Then just reverse the order of what you said would happen. He said it's a lot less paperwork for us, keeps the population of the prisons down, and then we don't have to catch this bugger a second time.
Right. But is it appropriate for a premier to be saying something like this?
Maybe not.
Shoot him a few more times.
But also, you got to remember there's a saying in Montana, the 3 S's, shoot, shovel, and shut up.
Shoot, shovel, and shut up. Right.
My house, you stay out of it. I worked hard for my stuff. I'm not going to give it to you guys to take it at gunpoint or knife point or whatever.
Okay.
Maybe it's the redneck in me coming out, but doggone it. Something's got to be slowed these guys down somehow or other.
Right. All right. Okay. His critics, I'm just, coming back to this. And again, I understand the sentiment. Gordon, I thank you for your call. But his critics are going to say he's encouraging vigilantism. He's encouraging people to use disproportionate force. A lot of people won't understand or appreciate the nuances of the self-defense laws. And this could run the risk of escalating some confrontations when maybe the more appropriate thing to do is to call the police. That's just the other side of just presenting the other side. Calvin up next in Calgary. Hello, Calvin. Hi, Calvin. Are you with me? No? Okay, let's try George then. George, you're on the line. George, hello.
Hello, Rob. How
Hi,
are you
George.
doing?
Yeah, very good,
Hey.
George. Thank you. What do you want to talk about, George?
Thanks for having me on. Just
You're
quickly touch on the Doug Ford thing.
Yes.
I agree with him. I don't think it's reckless. I think it's time to send a message that we're not going to have the turnstiles of, book 'em and street 'em type thing. Too many people are getting into the system and out of the system too quick. Maybe the people that are committing these crimes will think twice. And if the general sentiment of people are getting fed up, they know they have the support of their leader to do what they need to do to protect themselves. And it might not be a fair comparison, but if you look at an angry bear protecting its cubs, there's no stop. If someone comes in my house to hurt my family, there will be no stop until that threat is completely eliminated. If I have enough time to say real quickly, as a responsible gun owner, following the law, my firearms and my ammunition are locked up separately. Someone breaks into my house, I don't necessarily have time to grab my keys, unlock my cabinets, get my gun, load it with the bullets that are somewhere else. I don't have time to put multiple shots into someone. So it's a little misleading. Unless you're sitting there ready and you're fully loaded, great, fill them with lead. But back to the original crux of it, I don't think Doug is wrong. I think what he said is good, and it sends a message.
Okay. All right. That does make me wonder, and I've been wondering this all day. You mentioned your gun is locked away, your ammunition is locked away somewhere else. It does make me wonder. I don't know the particulars of the timeline of how this happened. I have watched the security footage that was released by the police. How did that guy get to his gun safe and to his ammunition, or was that gun out and loaded and ready to go already? Makes me wonder. I do wonder about that. Okay, thank you for your call. Just like that, hour number 2 underway of Talkback. Have your say. A couple of hot stories in the news. Love to hear your opinion on them. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've been discussing a pair of news stories today. Big changes coming to MAID in Alberta. Only people who are terminally ill and likely to die within 12 months will be eligible for MAID in that province. And Ontario Premier Doug Ford saying to the man who shot a would-be home intruder, you should have shot him a few more times. What do you think of that kind of remark from a premier? Marianne in Nova Scotia. Marianne.
Generally speaking, I dislike Doug Ford's approach to governance. But in this particular instance, I am grateful to him for bringing public attention to this issue of self-defense. I think that without his provocative words, the issue would have just languished. Last week, Parliament had first reading of Bill C-270, also called the Stand on Guard Act, which is designed to give residents the right to use force against intruders. When I read about the bill, my first thought was, well, thank goodness Canada is coming to its senses about self-defense. But my second thought was worry that the bill would be buried, ignored, and rejected. Thanks to Premier Ford, this issue is getting the attention it deserves. And then moving on to Alberta, I think their changes ignore illnesses that give some people years and years and decades of intense suffering and powerlessness and indignity. And those people shouldn't be left to suffer unless they choose it.
Right.
So
well, that in fact was the decision from the Quebec court, which essentially led to the amended MAID law in Canada. But the Alberta government is arguing, well, that was a Quebec court ruling. It doesn't apply to us in Alberta.
Well, I won't move to Alberta.
Won't move to Alberta. Okay. All right. Marianne, thank you. That's an interesting observation. Marianne thinks Doug Ford, in speaking the way he is, very provocative, in speaking the way he is, I should have shot him a few more times as far as I'm concerned. He thrusts it into the public domain more than it otherwise would be. And that's why, and it's an important contribution to the law and order debate. Interesting. Gordon in Halifax. Hello, Gordon. Hi, Gordon. All right. I hear the don't of the iPhone. Zach. Let's try Zach in Calgary then. Hello, Zach.
Hi, Rob. I hope you're well.
Hi, Zach. Yep, everything's good here. What's your opinion?
Just quick on the Doug Ford thing. I think he was right, and I think the wording was fine. Self-defense is a fundamental right, and it precedes government. And I think if the government chooses not to protect citizens and punish criminals, then it will inevitably be the individuals that do it. That's not like a personal endorsement of vigilantism. It's just like an observation.
Okay.
But for the Alberta laws, I personally think it's a great start. It doesn't go far enough in my opinion because I fundamentally disagree. Yeah, I disagree that Smith that MAID in any form is compassionate. But the point you made is fascinating, and it exposes one of the fundamental problems with MAID and progressive politics is Smith simply brings MAID back to its original intention, and then you have people saying that's extreme or fascist. It's ridiculous in my opinion.
Okay, I haven't heard that it's extreme or fascist. I think that there will certainly be critics and there will be supporters. There was a United Nations declaration, for example, just recently. They were speaking out about how Track 2 MAID is increasingly being used by vulnerable people, the disabled who are dealing with inadequate social supports. And they encourage the Canadian government to eliminate the Track 2, where your death is not reasonably foreseeable, to just eliminate that altogether. So groups with that position, along with religious organizations who are not in favor of this already, will be happy about this. But there will be others, like the Right to Die, dying with dignity. Those sorts of organizations will be upset that the premier is reining in the MAID regulations.
I have a question for you specifically about MAID. Did you read the Health Canada report on it at all, by chance?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I read it every year. It's an annual report.
Yeah, I read that apparently over 95% of the people who do it are Canadians of European descent. What do you think
they're
the
white.
conversation
They're
about
white.
What? Yeah, white.
They're white. Yeah, it says that. In the report.
What do you, my question to you, it's just kind of a hypothetical, but what do you think the conversation about MAID would be if 95% of the victims were Indigenous? Like, what do you think the Canadian government would call it?
Well, it's an interesting question. I'm just curious, why is it predominantly... I brought that up when we talked about... I was detailing some of the reports. It's primarily white people in Canada who opt for MAID. Don't ask me why. I can't explain why. Don't know why.
I have a couple ideas.
That's the way
we won't
it
get
is.
into it today, but...
Okay, well, yeah, we don't need to. Let's stick to it here. The reforms, I mean, they are big changes that Premier Smith has announced about MAID in Alberta. Only the terminally ill whose death is foreseeable within 12 months. They're getting ahead of the federal government's proposed expansion to people who only suffer from mental illness as their only underlying medical condition. That's a non-starter. Doctors won't be able to refer people to other provinces. Doctors won't be able to bring it up unless a patient brings it up first. In every healthcare setting, that you won't be able to put up, posters or, distribute pamphlets around information about MAID. All kinds of restrictions. It's very, very interesting. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Doug Ford says should have shot him a few more times. Talking about a homeowner who shot a burglar. Should have shot him a few more times. What do you think of something like that? And Alberta's pending MAID reforms, if you have a comment. Ray in Chestermere. Hello, Ray.
Oh, hi, Rob. First time getting
Hi there.
through. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I
I just like
appreciate
to say with regard. Yeah, I like to say with regards to the comment, we want politicians to be more honest and upfront, and then when they are, then they're ridiculed. So I find that rather fascinating with our society. What he said was his truth. Whether or not we like it or agree with it, it's still his truth. So we can take it for face value just at that. Whether or not there's any sort of implications down the road where all of a sudden, well, Doug Ford said that we could shoot more. I don't think that's anything to, draw attention to. Want to comment about with regards to what you're saying, could you access your firearm plus your ammo in your home when it's locked in a gun locker, etc.? I have my restricted and unrestricted, and I accessed that right to bear firearms when Trudeau was trying to take that away. I'd never had any interest in it. And then all of a sudden, when he was trying to remove that right, I thought, well, I just want to go and see what this is all about. Maybe I don't even want one. What people need to understand who do not have a firearms license is it's not something, or people who don't hunt, it's not something that just comes naturally. It's not something that you can just start shooting like, the Wild West. I'm going to shoot, 5 rounds into this home intruder. You'd be lucky with the way that the hand would be shaking and the amount of adrenaline that would be going through. You'd be lucky to even hit anywhere on the body, regardless of situation. And yeah, you probably, if there was enough of a threat, you probably would pop 5 rounds out just because of fear, just actual fear. So this is something that this is our right. This is our right to bear arms. This is our right to protect our family, our right to protect our property. And I'm loving the women that are calling in as well, because it's our right as well.
Okay. Thank you for having your say. I'm not going to bring anyone on right now because you'd only have about 30 seconds or so. So we're going to have to pick it up after the latest breaking news. If you don't mind, I hope you'll be patient. The phone lines have been jammed all day, and we're trying to give everyone as much time as we possibly can so they can have your say. So weigh in on the controversial or provocative, if you will, remarks from Ontario Premier Doug Ford about firearms and home invasions. And if you do have a comment on the MAID restrictions coming soon to the province of Alberta, I'll take that call as well. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
In the home stretch of Talkback now, where we have been talking about a couple of news stories that are in the news cycle. Ontario Premier Doug Ford praising a homeowner who shot a home intruder, said should have shot him a few more times, and then slammed the federal Liberals for their failed gun control measures. What do you think? Alberta Premier Danielle Smith restricting access to MAID in Alberta with huge reforms proposed this week. Connor is in central Alberta. Thanks for calling, Connor, and thanks for waiting.
No problem there, Rob. Thank you. In terms of
your opinion.
Yeah, thank you. In terms of Mr. Ford's comments today, I think he got a point out there, which thankfully to your show is very educating, but I don't know that it was as diplomatic as it could be coming from a premier. But Rob, I know a few people in law enforcement, and obviously I can't really speak where they are, who they are. I've been told, thank you. I've been told that if somebody was to invade your home and you had to shoot, and the lady from Chestermere that was on just before the break, she got when she said that, you just fire out of fear. And unfortunately, and we know from that case in Okotoks where that man had to shoot that man that was invading his home and what he went through. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it doesn't matter. Is that you have a better chance in court if you empty that clip on the grounds that you were afraid for your life. And that's not really my point. My point is that it has come to that. And Rob, I've owned property in the United States, and I'm a rural landowner in Alberta, and we have way more gates on our properties here than what they do down there, because they have that castle law saying that you can protect yourself. And there needs to be a lot of change here in Canada, not just Alberta, because through our Rural Crime Watch Society, Rob, I have learned from the RCMP, our liaisons with they bring in certain people to talk to us, and one of them was the head prosecutor, the Crown prosecutor from Red Deer, and she basically said that she had to triage so many cases, and so people were getting robbed on their farms. It's not as bad anymore. People are getting robbed on their farms, and she says, I can't deal with it because I have to deal with the fact that some kid was hurt this way or that way. And I totally agree with that. But she basically said, we don't have courtrooms, we don't have enough jails. And so part of Rob Ford's comments were, let's spend the hundreds of millions of dollars on, instead of take that away from taking the guns away from people, put it into something that maybe we can actually teach people a lesson for. Because these people, Rob, they're going to get, I don't want to say it on the radio, but they're going to get killed because they don't ever get taught that it's wrong, and they keep going.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Just in case you're just joining us and you're not familiar with the story that we're talking about, Doug Ford was referencing a home invasion that happened in Vaughan, just north of Toronto, where they've had a series of these. A man was killed right in front of his family in one of these home invasions. Curtis, if you will, play the video again. This was released by the York Regional Police. You hear them banging on the door. You can even, if you listen closely, you may want to turn up the volume. Curtis pointed this out, and I think he's right. I think you can hear a taser, that one of the intruders may have been carrying a taser. Let's listen to this together again.
Police!
You hear that? Do you hear that? Does that sound like a taser? Yeah, it sounds like a taser. So in the video, you can clearly see one of them has a gun. Maybe another one has a taser. So then Doug Ford was asked about this, and this is what he said. This was yesterday during one of his news events. Play that again, Curtis, please.
As for the person that was defending his family, he was a legal gun owner, was stored properly, congratulations. Yeah, I'm glad you shot the guy. Teach us the rest of these robbers, and I encourage everyone out there that's a legal gun owner. Someone's going to come in and try to kill you and kill your family. Remember, it was just last week, Jamie, one guy got shot because he was trying to protect his kids. Well, these guys, they need to be shot, as far as I'm concerned. You're coming through the front door to hurt your family. I'll never forget
That's good. That's good, Curtis. Thank you. Let's take another call here. He later said you should have shot him a few more times. Lee in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Lee. Hi, Lee.
Good afternoon, Rob. How are you?
Hi there. Very good. Thank you. Go ahead.
Regarding Premier Ford's, there's a time for calculated and politically correct statements regarding certain subjects. And then there's a time for a little more emotional, visceral type responses. And the way Premier Ford brought it out was with some emotion, and people will react to that. Like, I react more to a little more emotion than more monologue, just analog, politically correct statements, right? He could have cleaned it up a bit. You're right. But at the same time, and he's really bringing up something like your caller just before me said. And this regards law enforcement. This does include the judicial system in Canada. Theft, property loss, property damage is not a victimless crime, even though some law enforcement agents would say, well, it's only this much. But the one thing we can't put a policy on is feeling safe in our own homes, in our own communities, on our own streets, right? That you can't put premium on that. And it's not just, if you have a gun at home. There are a lot of people who have a 9-iron at the back door and a baseball bat at the front, and then a 90-pound German Shepherd that doesn't bark till the door opens. There's any number of ways an intruder can get hurt by a homeowner protecting their home. And, even it could even be, their life, right? If someone comes in. And I believe that we have full right to protect our home and our family and our property for that matter, right? I would hope that there's room for reform in the judicial system to not just allow people just to keep walking away from it, kind of like the last caller said. They just keep walking away and get almost scot-free. They're not learning their lesson. When I was a kid and I did something I shouldn't have, I got shown the belt. I didn't necessarily get the belt, but it was shown to me. And sometimes maybe that's what has to happen. Right?
Okay. Thank you. I will point out the guy who was shot, his fellow suspects just kind of dumped him off at the hospital. He's 24 years old, been in trouble before. Surprise, surprise. So in addition to the robbery charges and firearms-related offenses he's facing now, breach of probation, breach. How many times do you see that? On an outstanding probation order for an unrelated offense at the time. So he, as I say, wasn't teaching Sunday school. A frequent flyer. Be right back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Ernie in Kitchener's up next on Talkback. Hi, Ernie.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
Yeah, good, Ernie. Thank you.
Good.
Your opinion, please.
I think everybody's basically saying the same thing. I haven't heard a show like this where almost everyone agrees. I say completely, let it rip. If somebody enters your home, you do whatever you have to do to protect your family. And my question is, why are we even having these discussions? 10 years ago, we wouldn't be talking like this. It would almost be, maybe we should have caution. We should kind of try to assess the situation, which, again, if you're woken up in the middle of the night, it's incredibly hard. But, this guy was already out on probation, and now we're asking if we should be allowed to do this. I think it's completely reversed. We should be asking, why is this happening? Why does this continue to happen? It sounds like there's a new story every week, Rob.
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
So, that's just on that point alone with that to happen. Rob, I'm going to do whatever I can to defend myself. I'm surprised this guy was able to get the safety cabinet open and get the bullets and all that in the time frame that it happened, because I watched the video, but again, we can't see how quick it happened. But I'm not going to ask those questions either as to how that happened either, right?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. As I said, I'm not a thug hugger. Right. But when you hear a premier say, "Well, he should have shot him a few more times," teach him a lesson. Should have shot him. I'm just asking, just to prompt the debate. Is that reckless? And some people have said yes. We had a caller who said it's irresponsible for him to say something like that. But that's very much the minority opinion. But it's an opinion.
To that question, I will say, you know what? That's the homeowner's decision, and whatever decision that homeowner makes, I agree with it either way.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Ernie in Kitchener. I know it's been a bit of a wait today. Let's go to Guelph. Colin is in Guelph. Hi, Colin.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yeah. Hi, Colin. Yeah. Go ahead, Colin.
So, I'm not going to comment on the MAID thing because I haven't made up my mind about that yet. But I think what the premier said was pretty irresponsible, personally. And
see, you're the minority opinion, then, Colin. You're the minority opinion. I'd like to hear this.
I'm okay with that. I just find it disturbing how people talk about shooting somebody with such callousness, especially somebody who's already been disabled. For the premier to say, well, should have shot him a couple more times. Okay, this guy broke in, wrong. He faced somebody with a firearm and the guy defended himself. I'm okay with that. Once the guy's disabled, once you've shot him, he's no longer a threat to you. So you don't need to shoot him 2 or 3 more times to maim him or kill him. There's no reason for that. That's just, if a police officer did that, If a police officer disabled somebody with their gun and then just shot them 2 more times out of spite, they'd be fired. You can't do that. So for people to come on the air here and just say, oh, yeah, I agree with the premier, he should have shot him a few more times just to, just as a, there
Teach
you
him
go.
a lesson.
You deserve it.
Teach him a lesson. Yeah.
You've already taught him a lesson. You've shot him. You've maimed him. To do any further, I think it's just, and again, the way that people talk about shooting or killing somebody with just such heartlessness. I mean, you know how difficult it is to shoot somebody? It's not an easy thing to do, and you have to live with that for the rest of your life. So I think people need to be a little more responsible with their remarks, honestly, especially the premier.
All right. Thank you. As I say, Colin, you're a brave man today to take the counterpoint, but I appreciate you doing that, sir. It's important to get that out there. And we can get your opinion out there. All it takes is a phone call. 1-833-668-2577. I can fit you in. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, certainly the Doug Ford story and his remarks about that home invasion in Vaughan, the big story for Talkback today. Let's go to Rashid is in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Rashid.
Hi, Rob. I'm a long-time listener and a first-time caller.
I really appreciate that, Rashid. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. What's your opinion?
I just want to say, make a comment about Doug Ford. And really, his Premier Doug is a person with a common sense and a very logical, because criminals who are coming to your house from the intention of hurting you, hurting your family, and destroying your property, I don't have any mercy for them. So if you have anything, you have to defend yourself. And if you have a gun, probably you don't have time to look for it. But if you can find anything, like a big stick or like big cane or anything you have, even knife, as a self-defense, really, I really approve that. And it is a very good thing to defend yourself. And I don't have any issue.
So you have no problems at all with what Doug Ford said, Rashid? You have no problems at all with what Doug Ford said?
No, I don't have any problems, really. It is because that is a logical thing to do, because if somebody is coming to your house to hurt you during daytime or nighttime, I mean, what do you expect other than defending yourself? Sometimes you don't even have time to call the police. So
you might not even have time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And this was 12:30 in the morning, like after midnight. And they're pounding on that door, kicking it in. All right, Rashid, thank you for your call. I want to take one more. Amar is up next. Amar. Hi, Amar.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. Yeah, you're on the air. Go ahead.
How are you doing? Hi.
Good.
Thank you, Rebecca, for having me on call. So I'm all for eye for an eye and defending my property, but I cannot keep going shooting the person. Once it's down, it's down. It's done, right? You shoot once, you're not sure, okay, he's down or not. You shoot him one more time, but I think that's pretty much it. The guy is helpless, or he's like not there anymore. You do your defense, and then you call 911, get the guy medical treatment or whatever needed. But keep shooting on, that's barbaric, and that's very callous. And the politicians should be careful about the public opinion and should be careful about making the public statements and endorsing the violence. So there's a difference between self-defense and violence.
Right. So you think that Doug Ford may have inflamed the situation?
Yeah. Like imagine if everybody in our country sitting in their living room with a gun in their hands, and whoever walks to the driveway or across the street or the lawn, and then they start shooting them. Like where's it going to end? Right? It has to be restrained. Yes. The defense, the argument for the defense, self-defense, and property defense, valid. Okay, I'm for it, but it cannot be uncontrollable defense that I can just go and kill the person. You should be like, okay, I'm gonna disable the person, not necessarily kill the person. It's a big thing.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right, Amar. Thank you. Again, I think you're slipping into the minority opinion as well today. Quite a few of those calls, actually, probably 5 or 6, but overwhelmingly, I would say Doug Ford certainly struck a chord with his remarks yesterday. I thank you for all of your calls today. Very, very busy. I'm glad you're all engaged in these news stories that we try to present to you each and every day. We will do it again tomorrow. Tomorrow's the Friday free-for-all talkback. That is always an adventure because you get to take the lead and pick a topic, and we'll just do our best to roll with it. Until then, always the latest breaking news. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.